it is the technology embedded within good instruction. So it's really hard to say, I put this device in and miracles happen. But what I will tell you is that as we were tracing it, as each of our schools went one-to-one, we had high stakes testing like everybody else. And one of the things that the research told us at that time was that a lot of times as you make that shift to one-to-one, your scores can go flat for a while before it comes around, and that was not our case. The scores did improve even in the first year, and that was in a state where the passing standard was raised every year, so you had to be higher to pass or have, the percent of students passing, and we did see an increase. And where we saw the most dramatic increase was in the students in our lower SES socioeconomic population. So the most economically disadvantaged students saw the greatest gains, particularly in math and science is where we saw, and that continued for several years when I was still working in the district. So those scores are important, and we track the data, and they did go up. The other thing that you see, if teachers are using it effectively, and that means using it, not having it as a doorstop on the side of the room, but actually using the technology. It is the native language of our students. So what you find is that they're more engaged. We do see discipline problems go down, attendance goes up. When we started our first technology integration program that I talked about earlier, even with our very young students, what we began to see is when it was time for recess, they didn't want to go. They wanted to stay in the room and keep doing what they were doing. So we knew we were onto something at that point. But it is so natural today for the students who are coming through today to ask them to do without it is to ask them to almost the equivalent of don't eat anymore either. It's just a natural part of their life.
Well, that brings up another question that comes to mind frequently, which is there's all this technology. The pressure is rising to begin to utilize this for teaching practices. So what advice would you give for teachers that are maybe feeling a little fearful at this point that would help them to put in perspective that there's a need for some of this evolution in teaching methodologies that begin to incorporate technology?
The role of a teacher today is very different. It's very different than when I was in the classroom. You have to embrace that. I think change is a part of life that we all have no matter what we're doing, and you have to understand that that's just the nature of the beast of living in 2014 and beyond, is that change is going to be a part of it. But when I think if a teacher can look at how empowering that can be for her. And I think when teachers, or him, and when teachers put the focus on the students, and you just have to look at the faces of your students. I would no more want to stand in front of a group, and I taught 8th grade 13-year-olds. I would not want to stand in front of them and lecture to 30 boring faces more than one day. I mean, I just wouldn't want to do that. So you flip it and you look at the students and you let them be your driver along with the standards and everything that you have to meet. I think, you can make it happen. There is a lot out there, and you and I have talked about that there's so much out there. So I don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed by that. Find one or two things that work for you and work for a friend, and together work it through. Talk about it, work it through, and then grow it. And what will happen is you will find the one or two things, you'll get comfortable with that. I used to find in doing professional development with teachers that there was a certain wall, and you had to hit that wall, but once you got through it, oh, look out, and that's just part of the process. And I think that's the other thing teachers need to know. It is a process. It is in some ways like learning a foreign language, and you don't speak it fluently on the first day. But you pick up 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, and the more you're engaged and the more you use it, the more natural it begins to feel. And just give yourself that gift of time to do that.